Hey, if you don't let Jake Paul win, he's gonna kill you 9 days later. Or just kill your two best friends.
The internet came to a sudden halt when Bryce Mitchell went live and made explosive claims about Jake Paul, directly linking him to Anthony Joshua's car crash in Nigeria. There was no evidence shown and no restraint in his delivery. Just raw accusations fired straight into the camera. What truly ignited outrage, however, was not only what Mitchell said, but what he appeared to suggest next, sending shockwaves across social media. As the clip spread rapidly online, reactions poured in from fans and critics alike, demanding answers and accountability. Here's how it unfolded. On December 30th, 2025, UFC fighter Bryce Mitchell uploaded a 13-second video to his social media accounts, a brief post that was enough to spark widespread controversy throughout the combat sports community.
Hey, if you don't let Jake Paul win, he's gonna kill you 9 days later. Or just kill your two best friends. But somebody's gonna die if you don't let him win.
The video surfaced 9 days after Anthony Joshua knocked out Jake Paul in the 6th round of their December 19th fight in Miami, and just 1 day after Joshua survived a deadly car crash in Nigeria that claimed the lives of 2 members of his team. Mitchell recorded the clip indoors, wearing an orange jacket and glasses, speaking straight into the camera. He offered no evidence, no context, and no explanation, only direct accusations delivered without hesitation. The crash occurred on December 29, 2025, at approximately 11 a.m. local time. Joshua was traveling as a passenger in a black Lexus SUV on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway in Ogun State, Nigeria. According to reports, the vehicle struck a stationary truck after the driver attempted to overtake another car at high speed. 2 men died at the scene, Sina Ghami and Latif Idelli, both 36 years old. Both victims had been integral members of Joshua's team for more than a decade. Ghami served as his strength and conditioning coach, while Idelli worked as his personal trainer. They had played key roles in preparing Joshua for the fight against Paul in Miami just weeks earlier. Joshua himself suffered minor injuries, including bruises and cuts, and was taken to a medical facility in Lagos for observation. The Federal Road Safety Corps of Nigeria investigated the incident, with preliminary findings pointing to excessive speed and improper overtaking as the main causes of the crash. Some early reports mentioned the possibility of a tire burst, but authorities found no evidence of foul play and did not open a criminal investigation. Nigerian President Bola Tinubu personally spoke with Joshua at the hospital and publicly identified the victims while offering condolences to their families. Jake Paul later addressed the incident in a post on X, stating that life is more important than boxing and expressing prayers for those who lost their lives, Joshua, and everyone affected by the accident. Shortly after, Mitchell released his video. He went beyond alleging that Paul was involved in orchestrating the crash, expanding his accusations to include Logan Paul. He labeled both brothers as hypocrites, accused them of mocking him, and claimed they portrayed him as racist and evil. Mitchell also alleged that the Paul brothers fixed fights and claimed Joshua refused to take a payout to throw the December 19th bout. The clip spread rapidly online, drawing swift backlash. Combat sports media outlets described the claims as disturbing and irresponsible. On social media, many users criticized Mitchell harshly, with some questioning his mental state and others calling for the UFC to intervene. One YouTuber echoed a common sentiment, describing Mitchell's remarks as embarrassing and reckless behavior from a grown adult.
So stupid. So stupid. I mean, I just watched what Bryce Mitchell said, and it's honestly pretty embarrassing. And for a grown adult to come out and say this, it's reckless. He's saying that if Jake Paul doesn't win fights, people end up dead. He thinks he's brave for saying this. It's not smart. That's just saying crazy stuff with no proof.
He went even further, openly questioning Mitchell's mental state and emphasizing that boxers are not hired hitmen who murder people over a loss in the ring.
I mean, the guy has clearly lost his marbles. He has some kind of mental health issues for sure. You don't get to hint at murder because of a boxing match. It doesn't make sense. Boxers aren't professional hitmen. It's not. You can't demand that you get a win and then just go whack someone. That's not how it works. That's not real life, okay? Anthony Joshua was in a serious accident. It's a serious, real situation involving real people, and 2 people, unfortunately, lost their lives.
The timing created a volatile and deeply toxic intersection of events. A boxer had just secured his biggest win in years, only to lose 2 of his closest friends days later, while a UFC fighter known for embracing conspiracy theories chose to publicly link the 2 moments. This was not Mitchell's first controversy, nor even his most extreme statement, but it was his most direct accusation tying a public figure to real deaths. To understand why Mitchell made these claims, it's necessary to look back 9 days earlier in Miami. The fight he implied triggered the alleged retaliation. The bout that ignited everything. The clash between Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua on December 19, 2025 embodied everything divisive about modern boxing. A YouTube personality with a 12-1 record stepped into the ring against a two-time unified heavyweight champion, an Olympic gold medalist with 26 knockouts in 29 wins. The promotional build-up framed the fight as an existential battle for the soul of boxing. Paul cast himself as the disruptor, challenging the sport's traditional gatekeepers, while Joshua embraced the role of the purist champion, tasked with shutting down what many critics viewed as a circus-style invasion of the sport. Netflix streamed the fight exclusively, continuing its push into live combat sports after the Paul-Tyson event earlier in the year. Viewership projections suggested the event could surpass 60 million households worldwide. Miami's Casilla Center sold out, with ticket prices starting at $50. Betting odds were overwhelmingly in Joshua's favor, opening at around -1,000 at major sportsbooks, meaning bettors had to risk $1,000 to win $100. Paul entered as a heavy underdog, ranging between +700 and +1,100, implying just a 10 to 15% chance of victory. Despite those odds, 83% of bets placed on DraftKings backed Paul, largely driven by casual fans chasing a massive payout. Long before the opening bell, critics dismissed the matchup as a mismatch. Joshua stood 6'6" with an 82-inch reach, compared to Paul's 6'1" frame and 76-inch reach. Joshua had faced elite heavyweights such as Vladimir Klitschko, Alexander Usyk, and Francis Ngannou, while Paul had built his record largely against aging legends and MMA fighters transitioning into boxing. At the final press conference, Joshua spoke candidly about his mindset, describing himself as a seasoned 36-year-old who had grown through years of trials and tribulations.
When you go through trials and tribulations and you come out on the other side, you come stronger, wiser, and you learn as you get older. I'm not the same person I was when I was 15, 25. I'm a 36-year-old man now, so I'm a lot more seasoned. And in terms of religion, we're all one under God's eyes. And I pray, that everyone sees that same way that I do. And I just keep God by my side, really. And that's it. I'm in a good place.
But Paul maintained his trademark bravado in the face of the odds, comparing the matchup to some of the greatest upsets in sports history.
This is, the Giants versus the Patriots, 2007. I mean, the list goes on, but the odds are stacked against me. There's no sporting teams in history that have gone together where it's this big of a difference in terms of skill, experience, resume, height, weight, etc. So this is going to be the biggest upset in the history of sports, and you guys get to witness it, and I get to witness it, and thank God. God is guiding me, Jesus is guiding me, and it's all in His glory in their name. So, this is just a special moment that we all get to be a part of. Amen.
When the fight got underway, Paul adopted an evasive approach that quickly frustrated both Joshua and the crowd. He circled along the ropes, tied up in clinches whenever Joshua closed the distance, and at times even dropped to his knees in movements that resembled takedown attempts more than traditional boxing. The commentary team openly criticized the tactics, the referee issued repeated warnings, and the audience grew increasingly restless. Joshua stayed composed through the early rounds, relying on his jab to control range while calmly absorbing Paul's occasional countershots. As the fight wore on, the physical disparity became impossible to ignore. Joshua's consistent bodywork steadily drained Paul's energy. Round 5 proved to be the turning point. Joshua scored 2 knockdowns, the first from a brutal body shot followed by an uppercut, and the second from a sharp 1-2 combination. Paul managed to survive the round but showed clear signs of damage, and the judges scored it 10-7 in Joshua's favor. The end came in round 6. Joshua opened with heavy combinations, flooring Paul twice more before finishing the fight with a straight right hand followed by a left-right combination at 1:31 of the round. As Paul struggled to get back to his feet, the referee stepped in and waved off the contest. Later on his podcast, Joe Rogan noted that Paul had performed respectably for someone with less than a decade of boxing experience and no true professional level opponents aside from Tommy Fury.
Look, that guy did great for someone who's been boxing for less than a decade. He has had no real professional opponents other than Tommy Fury that were legitimate world-class boxers.
I don't even remember what happened in the Tommy.
He lost a close decision, but it was a good fight. It was a good fight, though. He's a good boxer. If he wasn't a YouTuber, people would be way more impressed with him.
The official scorecards showed just how one-sided the fight truly was. All three judges had Joshua ahead 60-50 at the time of the stoppage, meaning Paul lost every completed round, including the 10-7 fifth. Paul's post-fight claim that he had won 2 rounds directly contradicted the judges' tallies. The damage went far beyond the scorecards. Joshua's final right hand fractured Paul's jaw in 2 places, injuries that required surgery with titanium plates and screws. Several teeth had to be removed, and Paul's jaw was wired shut for weeks. Despite the severity of the injuries, Paul later spoke publicly about the fight, acknowledging the broken jaw while still describing the experience in positive terms.
This sport has helped me so much in my life. I think my jaw is broken, by the way, so it's definitely broke. But, man, that was good. Nice little ass whooping from one of the best to ever do it. So I love this shit, and I'm going to come back and get a world championship belt at some point.
Are you surprised you went 6 rounds with the former 2-time unified heavyweight champion?
Honestly, I'm not surprised. I just got tired, to be honest.
Rogan issued a stark warning about what continuing to fight could mean for Paul's long-term health, pointing to depression, addiction, and brain damage as frequent consequences for fighters who absorb excessive punishment over time.
Don't do this very long, because there's a price that you pay that is not worth it.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. And that price is depression, deep depression, a severe brain imbalance that's going to lead you to addiction. It leads so many people to impulsive behavior. So many people become gambling addicts, drug addicts, alcoholics after their fighting career.
Yeah.
It's you could only take so much. And at a certain, like that one that he got from Joshua, say if you have like a punch card, you have like so many punches that you can get in your life, which I believe you do. I believe there's a certain number. That one was like 10 bunches.
Estimated payouts reflected the scale of the spectacle, regardless of the outcome. Paul reportedly earned between $40 and $50 million, while Joshua took home around $90 million. The fight reinforced Paul's strategy of high-reward, spectacle-driven bouts. Even in defeat, Joshua used his post-fight interview to call out Tyson Fury for a potential 2026 showdown, re-establishing his relevance in the heavyweight division after setbacks against Usyk and Dubois. Paul, meanwhile, vowed to return once healed, setting his sights on a cruiserweight world title. 9 days later, Joshua traveled to Nigeria to visit family and celebrate his victory, a trip that would end in tragedy on one of Africa's deadliest highways. The tragedy in Nigeria *. The Lagos-Ibadan Expressway handles some of the heaviest traffic on the continent, connecting Nigeria's commercial capital to its second-largest city across roughly 127 kilometers of road. The Federal Road Safety Corps recorded 175 crashes on this single highway in the first quarter of 2025 alone, resulting in 73 deaths and 393 injuries. On December 29, 2025, Joshua was traveling this road towards Sagamu to visit family. His British-Nigerian heritage traces back to the Yoruba people, with ancestral roots in Ogun State. He bears a prominent tattoo of the African continent on his right shoulder, highlighting his connection to Nigeria. Joshua spent part of his childhood in the country, attending Mayflower School in Icon before returning to the UK at age 12. Just hours before the crash, Joshua shared an Instagram story showing himself and Latif Idelli playing table tennis. The black Lexus SUV he was traveling in carried 5 passengers. Joshua sat in the rear behind the driver, while Ghami and Latif Idelli occupied seats directly in the line of impact when the vehicle collided with a stationary red truck parked by the roadside. Investigators later determined that the driver had been attempting to overtake another vehicle at high speed when the collision occurred.
So as far as I'm aware, what actually happened was that the driver was undertaking and trying to get ahead of the vehicle ahead, and in the process crashed into a stationary truck. So this is on a highway in Lagos, and they were heading towards a nearby village to visit some of AJ's relatives.
The FRSC arrived within minutes of the crash, finding 2 men dead at the scene, 1 passenger with minor injuries, and 2 others unaccounted for. The SUV's front end was completely destroyed. Authorities transported the deceased to Livewell Hospital morgue in Sagamu. The victims were more than just professional associates. Sina Ghami had served as Joshua's strength and conditioning coach for over a decade, specializing in muscular injury rehabilitation and sports performance. He co-founded Evolve Gym in London and had traveled with Joshua to Miami to prepare for the Paul fight just weeks earlier. Latif Idelli had been Joshua's personal trainer since the early stages of his career. Before entering fitness, he played semi-professional football in England for clubs including Alsbury United, Tooting, and Mitcham United. Idelli converted to Islam in 2012, a choice he later described as his greatest blessing. Both men were 36 years old. A podcast host covering the incident noted that Joshua's evacuation from the scene and subsequent ability to fly back to the UK indicated his physical injuries were not severe.
He was sat upright in the police vehicle being evacuated, but it's because they obviously don't have the capacity for those emergency services to arrive so quickly. From what I've heard and read, he's now been, brought back to the UK.
Oh, is he back?
Yeah,
in the UK?
yeah, that's
Really?
what I've heard.
Wow.
Yeah, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but that is from my
the fact that
understanding.
he was able to fly suggests that the injuries may not have been too bad.
Yeah.
Because if you're not in a physically conditioned to fly, then they won't let you fly.
But physical injuries told only part of the story. The hosts reflected on the psychological trauma Joshua would face, the survivor's guilt, the constant replaying of the crash in his mind, and the haunting reality that he had lived while the friends sitting beside him did not.
My heart goes out to him. And the mental and the trauma and all that, he's going to be reliving that, because not only did he lose his two friends, he was actually there. He survived that, so there's going to be all the survivor's guilt that comes with that as well. Then there's a processing of how it all happened, reliving it. Going to bed at night, that will be playing through his mind all the time.
Eddie Hearn, Joshua's promoter at Matchroom Boxing, released a statement honoring Ghami and Idelli as two great men and called for privacy for the grieving families. Fellow fighters, including Chris Eubank Jr., mourned them as genuinely good men and fallen soldiers. Nigerian President Bola Tinubu's public acknowledgement of the victims carried immense significance, stating, "I have spoken with AJ to personally convey my condolences over the passing of his two close associates, Kevin Latif Idelli and Sina Ghami. This immense tragedy casts a deep shadow on this season. I sympathize with you and your family as you bear the emotional weight of this unfortunate incident." The crash reignited scrutiny over Nigeria's road safety crisis. FRSC data revealed more than 5,421 deaths in 9,570 accidents nationwide in 2024, with excessive speed and improper overtaking cited as leading causes. The Lagos-Ibadan Expressway had earned its reputation as the country's deadliest road, with over 645 fatalities recorded over a 27-month period. Speculation about Joshua's boxing future began immediately. Analysts and hosts questioned whether he would ever compete again after enduring such trauma, or whether he might channel his grief into future victories.
You don't know how this is going to affect him going forward. I mean, obviously, time does heal. I mean, I've been there. I've suffered personal tragedy very, very close to me, and it takes you a long time to get over it. So I just hope he's going to be all right. I mean, forget about the boxing for 1 minute. Some people are suggesting he may never box again. Some people are saying that he may use this as a way to get over this and maybe try and win a world title and dedicate it to the people that was affected. You just don't know how it's going to play out.
Into this atmosphere of mourning and uncertainty, Mitchell injected his conspiracy theory. While families were grieving and a boxer was processing survivors' guilt, a UFC fighter with a documented history of extreme statements chose to assign blame to Jake Paul. This was far from Mitchell's first time making headlines for the wrong reasons. His pattern of controversy stretches back years. Bryce Mitchell entered the UFC through The Ultimate Fighter and was undefeated in 2018. The Arkansas native built his reputation on elite grappling, including a rare twister submission against Matt Sales that placed him among a small group of fighters to execute the move in UFC competition. By late 2025, his professional record stood at 18-4. But his in-cage accomplishments have increasingly been overshadowed by a consistent trail of inflammatory remarks. Mitchell has spent years cultivating a public persona that blends combat sports with conspiracy theories, religious fundamentalism, and provocative claims that regularly spark backlash. He has publicly stated that he believes the Earth is flat and has challenged Joe Rogan to debate the topic. He has claimed gravity is a hoax, promoted anti-vaccine views by linking them to government control and various health conditions, and said he homeschools his son to avoid what he describes as indoctrination in public schools. In January 2025, Mitchell's podcast Arc Insanity aired what became his most notorious episode. Speaking on camera, he claimed that, based on his own research, he believed Adolf Hitler was actually a good person.
I think that Hitler was a good guy based upon my own
here's the good stuff.
my public education in hell in the Nazis. I really don't think that he was, because I honestly think that Hitler was a good guy based upon my own research.
No, you don't. You can't. You possibly can't.
He elaborated on his reasoning, claiming Hitler fought for his country and wanted to purify it by removing Jews and burning books about homosexuality.
Fought for his country. He wanted to purify it by kicking the greedy Jews out that were destroying his country and turning them all into gays. They were gaying out the kids.
Gaying it up, baby.
Queering out the women. They were
queering them out.
The dudes. They were. You know what her first tranny surgery ever was?
Germany. I'm calling it right here, right now, Germany.
Happened to be in Germany before
Yeah.
Hitler took over. You know the books that everybody makes fun of Hitler burning? You know what the books was?
Gay books.
Queer books.
Mate.
Hitler burned.
UFC CEO Dana White responded publicly, calling Mitchell's statements dumb, ignorant, and beyond disgusting. Despite the backlash, White cited free speech principles and declined to discipline Mitchell, joking that fans could instead watch him get his ass hooped in the octagon. Mitchell later issued an apology on Instagram, clarifying that he is definitely not a Nazi. Yet, in December 2025, around Christmas, he doubled down, stating he had no regrets about his comments and describing his intelligence as a curse. One commentator pointed out the awkward position this put Dana White in, unable to fire Mitchell despite widespread outrage because of the UFC's public commitment to free speech.
Where does Bryce Mitchell go from here? Because Dana White can't sack him, can't kick him out of the UFC because Dana White's such a big pro free speech. So he's got himself into a bit of a pickle.
Mitchell maintains close ties with Jake Shields, a former UFC fighter turned far-right commentator. The two train together, appear on each other's podcasts, and publicly support one another through various controversies. Shields defended Mitchell following Dana White's criticism and shares similar views on conspiracy theories, vaccines, and mainstream narratives. Mitchell's recent fighting career has produced mixed results. He suffered a first-round knockout loss to Josh Emmett at UFC 296 in December 2023 and a second-round submission loss to John Silva at UFC 314 in April 2025. He rebounded with a unanimous decision victory over said Nurmagomedov on July 26, 2025, surviving an early knockdown to grind out a win through grappling control. Some observers have speculated that chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, could be influencing Mitchell's increasingly erratic public statements. Research from Boston University shows that over 90% of examined former NFL players exhibited signs of CTE, with similar findings emerging among boxers and MMA fighters. Symptoms include impulsivity, paranoia, mood swings, and delusional thinking. After watching Mitchell's video accusing Jake Paul, one commentator directly questioned his mental state.
I mean, the guy has clearly lost his marbles. He has some kind of mental health issues for sure. You don't get to hint at murder because of a boxing match. It doesn't make sense.
Whether driven by CTE, genuine belief in conspiracy theories, or a calculated bid for attention, Mitchell's accusation against Jake Paul marked his most legally perilous statement to date. Previous controversial remarks about Hitler, the flat earth, and vaccines drew backlash, but they targeted abstractions or historical figures. The car crash video, however, directly accused a living public figure of orchestrating deaths. The question now centers on the consequences Mitchell might face and the broader impact of his statements on everyone involved. Legally, his claims carry significant exposure. By suggesting that Jake Paul orchestrated fatal violence in retaliation for a boxing loss, Mitchell potentially committed defamation per se, false statements that harm reputation without requiring proof of damages because they allege criminal conduct. Paul's team had already indicated a willingness to pursue legal action. Following the Joshua fight, Paul announced he was taking action against critics who claimed the bout was rigged, citing his broken jaw as evidence of authenticity. Mitchell's accusations go further, entering territory that alleges murder. For a defamation case to succeed, Paul would need to prove that Mitchell's statements were false, made with actual malice or reckless disregard for the truth, and caused harm to his reputation. The complete lack of evidence supporting Mitchell's claims strengthens any potential legal action. Nigerian authorities determined the crash resulted from road conditions and driver error, opening no investigation into foul play, and found no connection between Paul and the incident. The ethical dimensions of Mitchell's actions extend even beyond legal risk. 2 men lost their lives, and their families are grieving. Joshua witnessed friends die in a crash he survived. Mitchell weaponized this tragedy for social media attention, showing little regard for the human cost of his words. One commentator summed up the widespread frustration in the combat sports community, calling out Mitchell for turning a real tragedy involving real deaths into sensational conspiracy content.
Anthony Joshua was in a serious accident. It's a serious, real situation involving real people, and 2 people, unfortunately, lost their lives. So for Bryce Mitchell to come out here and make a conspiracy of it, it's crazy. Turning it into conspiracy, it's like he's on the internet at 3 a.m. just like surfing conspiracy theories and just randomly came up with this.
Calls for UFC discipline intensified following the video's release. Fans argued that the promotion had tolerated too many of Mitchell's inflammatory statements without consequence. Others noted the UFC's long-standing reluctance to police fighter speech outside of clear criminal conduct. The incident highlights broader issues within combat sports. Conspiracy theories have long permeated the industry, from allegations of fixed fights dating back to boxing's earliest days to modern claims surrounding Paul's opponents. The combination of celebrity influence, massive paydays, and social media amplification creates fertile ground for speculation, regardless of actual evidence. Jake Paul sits at the center of this ecosystem. His career thrives on controversy, often by design. Critics have accused him of cherry-picking opponents since his first professional fight. Former UFC champion Michael Bisping labeled him a coward for targeting aging legends and smaller opponents. While these criticisms about matchmaking hold some legitimacy, they are often conflated with baseless conspiracy theories about scripted outcomes. Even after Joshua's dominant victory, the fixed fight narrative lingered. One YouTuber argued that Paul's shattered jaw served as definitive proof the bout was real, insisting that the visible injuries should put an end to any speculation about rigging.
Whatever you think of Jake Paul, surely that now puts an end to the fixed fight narrative. Like, his mouth is in bits. This was not a fixed fight. No matter how much you dislike it, it was what it was.
Mitchell's accusations represent the extreme end of this kind of speculation. When every negative outcome is framed as part of a conspiracy, evidence becomes irrelevant. A car crash caused by road conditions turns into an alleged assassination. A boxer losing to an opponent nearly 50 pounds heavier becomes proof that someone must die if he doesn't win. The MMA, boxing crossover era has only amplified these dynamics. Paul's focus on spectacle-driven fights over competitive matchups generates massive engagement, but also fuels skepticism. Every mismatch, whether it favors or harms Paul, feeds theories about whether his fights are authentic. His Netflix deal introduced combat sports to audiences unfamiliar with the norms of the sport, creating new generations of both fans and critics. One YouTuber captured a common sentiment among viewers. They want to see truly competitive fights that genuinely test Paul's abilities, rather than spectacles heavily stacked in either direction.
I think for me now, I just want to see Jake Paul in a fucking competitive fight. And that's the problem with the direction he's been going in, is he puts on big fights, but not competitive fights. Fighting Chavez Jr., that was an easy win. Nate Diaz, an easy win. Mike Tyson, an easy win. Anthony Joshua, not competitive for the opposite reason. He's completely not expected to win, and it wasn't competitive.
For Mitchell, the aftermath remains uncertain. The UFC has shown no signs of disciplining him despite the controversy, and his track record suggests he may either double down on these accusations or pivot to entirely new provocations. His association with figures like Jake Shields creates an echo chamber that reinforces, rather than challenges, his views. For Joshua, recovery goes far beyond the physical injuries. The emotional burden of losing friends who had been with him for over a decade and surviving a crash that killed those sitting beside him defies easy processing. His boxing future remains unclear, with talk of a potential 2026 fight against Tyson Fury now overshadowed by questions about whether he will, or should, return to the ring. For Paul, the incident adds another chapter to a career defined by controversy. He recovers from a broken jaw while facing baseless murder accusations from a UFC fighter he has never met. His response, prayers for the victims rather than engagement with Mitchell's claims, showed unusual restraint for someone who has built his brand on feuds. The families of Sina, Ghami, and Latif Idelli suffered the cruelest impact. Their grief was exploited as content for a conspiracy theory. Their loved ones' deaths were twisted into evidence for claims with no foundation in reality. The machinery of social media engagement transformed real tragedy into controversy, with little regard for basic human decency. Combat sports will continue generating conspiracy theories. Jake Paul will continue generating controversy. Bryce Mitchell will likely continue making inflammatory statements. The pressing question remains: what accountability, if any, exists when speculation crosses into accusation and tragedy is turned into content? Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, click on one of the boxes on your screen to watch more similar content.